Hello, everyone. It is weekly wine picks. It's back. I have been very, very eager to bring this series back to you guys on the weekly. It was one of my favorite series to do. I don't know what happened. I think just things got a little crazy, but no matter, it is back and better than ever before. I'm going to go ahead and move this back so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. You can see these delicious wines that I'm about to open and tell you about, so stay with me. Okay, so Pinot Noir. Raise your hand if you like Pinot Noir. I love Pinot Noir. The problem is Pinot Noir, good Pinot, is not cheap. Most of it anyway. In fact, there's a lot of really bad examples of Pinot Noir in that sub $40 category that we're not going to talk about today. We're going to focus on the good stuff today. And a couple things that I want to talk about before we get into this series, because it's changed a little bit from the last time I've done weekly wine picks, which used to be from wine.com. It is no longer from wine.com. It is from Wine Access now. They are a proud sponsor / powered by / people I love to work with so much because they just always do the right thing no matter what. I am partnered with Wine Access. They are my official retail partner. I'm very, very proud to have them alongside me because they do such an amazing job of not only sourcing wines, but telling the story and getting the wines to you. So one of the things that I love about Wine Access and something you should always be considering when you are purchasing wine is the provenance of the bottles. Where did those wines come from? Where were they stored? How are they getting to you? Those are really, really important things when it comes to buying wine and wine in general. Wine doesn't love to be in places where it's uncomfortable. And where are we uncomfortable? We're uncomfortable in places where it's hot, where it's, you got sun shining on you all the time, where you're moving up and down in temperatures. It's not a good thing. It's not a good look for wine. So you always want to try to buy wines from a place that is going to keep your temperature stable, and also from a place that is buying wines as closely from the source as humanly possible. And of course, with wine, if you know anything about the 3-tier system here in the United States, which kind of sucks, the 3-tier system makes it so that it has to travel through a couple different wavelengths to get to you before from the time that wine is made until it gets into your glass. We don't like that. Wine Access goes straight to the source. They have relationships with a lot of purveyors, a lot of wineries, not just in the United States, but across the globe. And they've got an amazing team. Vanessa Conlon, who's a great friend of mine and the co-host for the new podcast that launches tomorrow. How excited am I? Unbelievably excited. Yes, I am starting a podcast. It is called Wine Access Unfiltered. Check it out tomorrow, wherever you listen to podcasts. That will be Thursday, the 22nd. She is part of the team. She's the head of wine. You've got Master of Wine, Master Sommelier, a couple advanced sommeliers, really amazing team behind what they do. And then, of course, once that wine is shipped to you, they are, of course, doing it with the utmost care. So if it's hot, they're going to be cooling it down with some ice packs and getting it to you as quickly as humanly possible. Shipping is included on the purchase of 6 bottles or more, or $120 or more. So we love that because when I'm buying wine, I'm rarely buying less than $120 worth. And then beyond that, what I love is their storytelling component. So if you've, one of the best things I've heard throughout this podcast journey, which has been with Wine Access, is hearing all of our guests and their love for the stories that are included with all of these bottles. And I myself am a fan. So anyway, I don't want to get too off track here, but I wanted to start with that since they are a very proud sponsor of the weekly wine picks now, and all of these wines are coming from them. Just a general overview of how this works. These are just simply 2 wines that I think are worth telling you about. I try to keep it in that comfy little like $20 to $40-ish range, because that is where I personally buy wines. I know a lot of you guys buy wines in that general ballpark of pricing, and always sort of thematic. So I try to find a way to give you 2 wines that are related to some degree, and we open them, we drink them, I tell you about them. And today we're talking about Pinot Noir, and specifically 2 Pinots that are sort of Burgundy lookalikes. So one that is from Burgundy. Actually, I shouldn't say 2 that are Burgundy lookalikes. One that's a Burgundy lookalike. The other is actual Burgundy for $40, which is crazy. So let's get these open. I wonder which I should open first. Let's start with the Domaine Nico. I love to open these on camera just to let you know that I'm actually drinking these wines. It's happening here. The one thing I would love for you to not do today is judge me by my glassware. I am not, I don't have my normal glasses at the moment. And so I have these, which are fine. I think a lot of you know glassware is important to me. I have used everything from Zaltos to my new favorite, which is Mark Thomas. Beautiful, beautiful stemware that just feels wonderful and light and delicate. Unfortunately, when the last round of fires broke out in St. Helena and Napa Valley, I was not able to bring those glasses with me. And so I've not ordered more. So I'm still using these kind of crappy Target ones, to be perfectly honest, but they're getting the job done. Domaine Nico. I am very excited to tell you about Domaine Nico. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this producer. This is a relatively new producer, so to speak, for me, but not new in the sense that I've never heard of the people behind the brand. So if you are familiar with Catena Zapata, which I've talked about on this channel before, they are very famous in Argentina for making wonderful Grand Cru Malbecs. They also have some projects with Chardonnay, but they also now have Domaine Nico, which is coming from the Uco Valley in Argentina. This is 100% Pinot Noir, and here is why I love it. Holy moly, look at that color. Love it. 2017. Yes, I'm using a Bordeaux glass for my Burgundy variety. Like I said, don't judge me. Okay, so what do you need to know? This is founded by Laura Catena. She, of course, if you are familiar with Catena Zapata, you're probably familiar with Laura Catena. She's kind of a badass. In addition to being a doctor, maybe even a surgeon, I think. Her family founded Catena Zapata, and she still oversees a lot of what happens there. They have multiple ventures beyond just Catena Zapata. They also have the Caro, C-A-R-O endeavor, which is a partnership between them and Lafite Rothschild in Bordeaux, a little tiny famous first growth winery in Bordeaux. And a few others. This is Pinot Noir coming from a very, very high elevation, which of course you don't really get so much in Burgundy. So right off the bat, that makes it kind of special. So you're looking at about 3,600 feet to give you an idea of like where that sits in the scheme of things. Think about Napa Valley and Howell Mountain. That's at like, that starts at 1,400. So half of that to be Howell Mountain, going up to about 2,500 feet in elevation. So this is sort of crushing it. Burgundy, by contrast, also crushing that by about 2,000 feet. So elevation is kind of an important thing when you think about terroir for grapes. Higher elevation can often mean a lot more intensity. We also love it because generally it means it's on a hillside site, which means that the vines are a little bit more vigorous. And generally that results in, very intense electric sort of wines. And so we like to pay attention to things like elevation. The other important part about this wine is that it's got some pretty Burgundian-esque soils. So you're looking at a lot of, sorry, I'm just moving my notes over to make sure I'm getting all this right. A lot of limestone and alluvial deposits, which you'll find in plentiful amounts in Burgundy. A wine like this, what should you be looking for? Well, of course, this is technically New World, but so much of what we're seeing out of Argentina, especially when it comes to the Burgundian varietals, tends to lean a little bit more old world. So I've found some of those Chardonnays and some of those Pinots, my goodness. Gosh, what is that wonderful Pinot Noir that I love so much that I'm blanking on the name of right now? It'll come to me later, I promise. I have been really, really blown away by some of the Burgundian varietals coming from South America, more specifically from Argentina. What else do you need to know? I mean, not, very, very dry, hot place, the Uco Valley, so less than like 10 inches of rain per year, lots of sunshine. So, a little bit of contrast to Burgundy as far as terroir and weather goes, but also and a lot of really comparable things as well. So let's taste the wine, right? This is $30, Domaine Nico from the Uco Valley in Argentina. How is it smelling? Get the heck out of here. This is so mushroomy and floral-y, but like tons of great cherry. So if you think about, gosh, where would this fall? This is not quite as bright as you might expect from Oregon. This is definitely not as sun-kissed as California, but it also, it sits in that sort of like forest floor, savory, mushroomy kind of elements. It's kind of a blend of all three. Really, really intense on the nose. Lots of that like crushed black cherry and gorgeous sage and rosemary. My goodness, I wish that I had a Burgundy glass for this wine because that is definitely what it deserves. It wants to kind of expand. I'll show you the color of this wine. It is super reflective, very transparent, very light, but intensity of this wine, as one might expect from a high elevation vineyard like this, is off the charts. So let's see how this is doing. Man. For I'm just going to sit here for a minute because, wow, for as light-bodied as this is, it is so wildly intense. You definitely feel the sun-kissed nature of this wine. So, this is New World in texture, in that it's feeling a little higher in alcohol. So where are we right now? Let's see if I can find this. 13.5, so fairly moderate. Maybe I just took a very big sip, but I will say, for you Pinot lovers, for those that love, brightness and acidity, a little bit lighter, but not watery, but also not like soupy and inky and like a Pinot that really wants to be a Cabernet, which is my biggest pet peeve. This is a Pinot that wants to be a Pinot, and all of those wonderful savory forest floor, sort of rosemary, sage things that I was getting on the nose, very much translating on the palate right now. This is a gorgeous medium-ish bodied wine, maybe medium light, but definitely not medium plus. Let's take another sip of this wine, shall we? And guys, I've got this chat going, so if you've got questions, the reason that I am doing this live is to be able to answer the questions in real time with you guys. It's also a lot easier for me too. I will be honest about that. But I love doing this live. I feel like, you get to see my reactions in real time. Here they are. So another taste. Man, I'd be super jazzed to get that as like a by the glass pour. It's intense. It's got great lift, great vibrance, but it's also very, very savory. Like I said, I would love to see how this does over the course of like 3 days. And I say that in the most loving way because I think this is a wine that is actually going to do really wonderful things over the course of 3 days. I will have this open for oh my gosh, for 3 days. I know some of you guys can put a bottle back in a night. I'm not that person. So I am definitely going to be putting this back in the fridge. I do just want to let this sit for just a brief moment as I move to the next wine. So that was Domaine Nico. That is $30 on Wine Access. I also will mention that if you go into my little description just below there, if you've never bought from Wine Access before and it is your first time, there is a link there. If you click it, you will get $50 off your first purchase of $150 or more. And since you're spending $150, you get free shipping. So that's like a win-win for everybody, right? This is a wine that I actually discovered a few years ago because the importer is a friend of mine. And I think that I have posted the interview that I did with her on Instagram. I think I posted it on here. If I haven't, I will rectify that most immediately. But this is a wine from Sarah Beer, who is the importer. And why that is important, when we think about Burgundy and we think about Europe and other regions that are not domestic, you have to think about the importer. And that can be one of the greatest telltale signs of a wine that is going to be in your wheelhouse / palate. And I say that because, one of the great importers of the wine world is Kermit Lynch. If you are a lover of Burgundy, if you're a lover of Europe, you love wines that have a sense of place, that express terroir really well. Kermit Lynch, always a champion of the smaller producers. Some famous wines like Domaine Nico from the south of France, of course, in the Bandol region, and then also has brought in Cocherie, definitely on the higher side of things, and then a million different producers in between. I have been a lover of Kermit. Oh, and of course the Beaujolais. You cannot forget the Beaujolais. I've talked about that a number of times. So Cru Beaujolais, that was really Kermit Lynch bringing in a lot of those great Cru Beaujolais you know, the great, wonderful producers that we love, like LaPierre. I think Domaine Nico is him. Maybe not actually. Anyway, he is wonderful. But Sarah Beer, another dynamite human being that I just love so much. She is a newer importer that I think, for me, our palates really align. And this is her importation company called True North Wine Merchants. Sarah looks for great producers from France and from Italy. And this was a wine that she brought to me about 2 years ago when I was still working at Press. And the secret fun fact about when I was working at Press is we had this sort of off-list list filled with producers from all over the world that were not Napa. So of course, you probably already know that the wine list at Press was 100% Napa Valley. It was the largest, deepest collection of Napa Valley wines in the world. But because we were situated in the heart of Napa Valley and often had many winemakers come and visit us who were eager to drink wines from around the world, we would have a secret stash back there just for those guys. And this was one of the wines back there that we often broke out because it was just really, really reasonable and very delicious. So when you just wanted like a great simple bottle of red Burgundy to enjoy with your dinner after you've been working all day, maybe it was harvest, maybe you were bottling, maybe you were hosting clients, whatever that was, we would have this wine. And this is the Côte de Nuit Vivine. This is 2017. I'll show you guys the label so you can see it. Another, you know, as we're talking about importers, just turn that bottle around. Sometimes it's on the front, sometimes it's at the back. And I apologize if you can't really see it in the light. I'll get it down low. But you can see sort of on the top there, that is where it says the importer's name, and that's where it says True North Imports. So again, like as you guys are starting to figure out what you like, maybe you already know what you like, pay attention to the importer. Sometimes that can be a lot more important than the region or even the variety, the producer. That can be a telltale sign, because if you think of it, an importer is hand selecting these wines for their portfolio to be sold. So many times what happens is there's a through line of many different wines that are sort of like-minded in spirit, but not necessarily in flavor profiles. So as you're trying to drink broadly and across the globe, importers can be very, very helpful in that way. And Sarah, I think, is just wonderful with the True North Wine Merchants and all of the great wines she brings in. This is a family-owned property, a Burgundy producer that sort of flies under the radar, so certainly not one of the most famous ones. You know, not one that is unheard of by any means, but just a really great, consistent quality producer of Burgundy that I've always just loved, because it's not crazy expensive. And as many of you already know, Burgundy can be outrageously expensive and often disappointing. And I've loved this wine because it's, always feels balanced, it always feels delicious, and it always over delivers for the price. This, like I said, is $40 available on Wine Access. And on the nose, it's interesting, the nose on the Argentinian Pinot Noir actually smells a little bit more Burgundian than this does. This is slightly more understated. So fruits in that, that's just slightly damp, underripe sector. So if you don't love that like sun-kissed feel of cherries in your glass, and of course Pinot Noir, which we're talking both of these wines today, this is red Burgundy, therefore it is Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir, it can take on a few different personalities, certainly not to the extent of some other grapes, but Pinot Noir, fruit-wise, you're almost always going to be in the cherry department. Sometimes you veer off to the strawberry section, but most of the time you're in cherry. So black cherry, red cherry, Bing cherry, tart cherry, cherry pie, various iterations of cherry, and then from there, you go into all your good non-fruit stuff. So all of your minerals, your forest floors, your mushroom, all that good stuff that happens when Pinot tends to get a little bit of age on it. Sometimes it happens earlier, like it is for the Domaine Nico. Would I say that the Nico is a more rustic Pinot? Is it more clean? I'm going to circle back to that question. I'm not going to ignore it. And I'm going to taste this wine because I don't want to compare and contrast quite yet. So bright, juicy, delicious. I mean, just so I can't ignore your question, Kurt. I'm sorry. I have to talk about it now. This is a little bit more clean, so to speak, for me. Neither of these are rustic by any means, but they're clean. They only see this is 20% whole cluster fermentation, and this is somewhere in the same vein, so not a ton of whole cluster. There's also not a lot of new French oak on either of these wines. Most of it is neutral, in fact, but this, the True North, the Côte-de-Nuit from Patrice Rion, this is drinking a little bit more clean, a little bit more pure, and a little bit more expressive, whereas the Domaine Nico is more of your forest floor, more of those savory elements, both on the nose and on the palate. It is bouncy and it's fruity, but it's more, if you think about like Beaujolais fruit, you know how it's kind of bouncy but also serious at the same time? That's this wine. I will say this is the wine that for me feels a little bit more in balance, in that I'm not, you know, I'm getting a lot of intensity with texture and alcohol in this wine. This feels, you know, a little, and maybe it's just where my palate is right now, but this feels a little bit more sexy and stealthy, balanced, clean. This can go down far too easy, I promise you. I'd love both of these wines, just a slight chill on them. They're not chilled right now, but they would be delicious. My palate may have sort of calibrated at this point, but I will say I'm not finding the acid to be quite as intense on the Patrice Rion as the other one, as the Domaine Nico, but I'm finding it very, very enjoyable. So what should you be thinking about for food pairings for these wines? Well, Pinot Noir loves the lighter proteins. So everything from, you know, great roast chicken, so long as you're talking about roast chicken with a little like chicken jus, you definitely want to get more of those herbs, more of that garlic, more of that intensity, try to get that nice crunchy skin. Pork, another great protein to go with your Pinot. But as we are in the fall and there's so many great root vegetables and squashes out there right now, if you're someone that tries to avoid meat and you love, you know, doing like roasted butternut squash, roasted acorn squash, this Pinot, both of these Pinots can handle those great fall root vegetables and squashes that we love so much this time of year. And I should note, I'm actually doing on Thursdays and Fridays, I go live with California Wines. So I'm on their Facebook on Thursdays and on their Instagram on Fridays. And both days, not this week, not tomorrow, but Friday, I'm live with Aida Molenkamp, who is a wonderful food blogger, and she's always sort of cooking in season. So if you are in need of any great recipe ideas, tune in and watch, because we did apple cheddar hand pies last week, which were very delicious. And then this week is a roasted acorn or butternut squash dip with a little bit of like a pepita. So that would be very, very delicious with Pinot Noir. It will also be delicious with the white wine we're going to enjoy with it. What else do you need to know about these wines? I want to go back to the Domaine Nico, see how that's doing now that it's been open for a second, and I will let this wine over here, the Côte-de-Nuit, chill for just a moment. Man, all of that like kind of smoky forest floor leather thing is really starting to come out, and maybe I'm just getting a little hungry, but it's starting to smell like roasted butternut squash as well. Oh, it's taken on a little spice. I would not say this is rustic. I would not say this is unclean. I would say this is a very clean wine. There is just a touch of spice. It could be coming from the whole cluster because texturally I'm getting something there. But this is a really fun, sort of savory, bouncy Pinot, you know, $30. You know, easy to buy in quantity, especially for the fall season. If you're hosting Thanksgiving, Pinot is always a great wine to go with all of your Thanksgiving dishes and to take you all the way throughout the season. Got a Volnay Champagne clone recommendation. Ooh, I don't know if I have a clone recommendation for you. I may have to get back to you on that. I really don't. I do know, if since we're talking about clones, I did have the clones on both of these wines, I thought, but maybe I don't. I thought these are all Dijon clones, but I could be wrong. Would I recommend letting these breathe a bit? You know, Pinot, when it comes to like decanting Pinot, kind of unnecessary, but Pinot does like to breathe. It's why we put it in a nice big aromatic wide glass. It likes a little bit of air. It doesn't want too much air. It's kind of finicky. But no, I don't think it needs to breathe. I just think, you know, with a few minutes, sometimes other things poke out the way that, in a way that they don't necessarily show themselves early on. You remember, like, this is like genie in a bottle, right? You pull the cork out and that genie is like ready to go, but it's kind of looking around, like needs a minute to relax itself. I don't think that it needs to breathe, so to speak, but it definitely will change over the course of a few minutes after it's sat in glass. So don't decant Pinot. It's unnecessary unless it's really like freshly bottled and has not had a moment since bottling to do anything. Sometimes because of the sulfur that goes in after bottling, it can take us a second to let it escape. The only other exception to that rule would be if you have if you've coravin the wine. Sometimes the argon gas that hits that wine can sometimes need a moment to kind of like move off of the wine. So sometimes that does need a little extra like zhuzh in there. Let's go back to this wine and see how it's doing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Weekly Wine Picks Revamp. I'm so excited to be doing this. This will happen every Wednesday because W's, that makes sense to me, at least in my brain. So I will be doing this weekly. Send me your requests. And if there's wines on Wine Access that you're curious to try, just ask me about them. A lot of them I've tried already. So, or they might be on the docket for what's up next, right? Next week, we're heading to Italy. Bouncy, delicious, fruity, but not too fruity, a little savory. Wow, just what a delicious, great representation of Burgundy. And again, I just love that you can have a wine like this. So Côte de Nuit Village via Vine. Côte de Nuit Village, Village means, sort of at an entry level where the grapes are coming from. So in Burgundy, you have Village, Premier Cru, and then Grand Cru. Village, certainly some wonderful grapes that come from Village. This particular family owns vines that are all three. So vines that are Village, Premier, and Grand Cru. And they also contract out some grapes as well. So they buy some fruit that actually goes into this bottling. All of this is coming from Burgundy. It is made with all the love and care that you would expect. Both of these wines are, in fact, and I should mention that the Domaine Nico is being overseen by Laura Catena, but she is not the winemaker. The winemaker is Estella Perinetti, and she worked under Nicola Catena for the Caro project, so CARO, that one that I was talking about before. That is the joint venture between Catena Zapata, CA, and Domaine Lafite Rothschild of Bordeaux, the RO. She worked under him, which is, where she sort of cut her teeth. So I'm excited to see what happens with Pinot. Gosh, I cannot believe that I can't remember that darn producer from Argentina that makes Pinot that I just love so much. And it's really driving me crazy right now, but I will try to find it and put it in the comments. Oh man, that is so annoying. Anyway, I can't think of it, but these are two very delicious wines. Oh, thank you. Bodega Chakra. Yes. Man, for the win. Yes, Bodega Chakra. I love Bodega Chakra. They have their entry-level one and then one that's a little bit more expensive. I love the entry-level one. It's delicious, but I have been blown away by how great the Pinot Noirs from South America have been. I think it's a region that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to, not just for Pinots, but for Chardonnays, for Malbec, for other varieties. In fact, I have a seminar coming up that I'm really excited to go to virtually to see some new producers that I have not experienced yet. So stay tuned for that. What else? We're almost at 30 minutes, which means I'm almost out of time and I'm a little hungry. So if you have questions, put them in the comments. I will answer them. And until then, tomorrow, the 22nd of October, is the official launch of Wine Access Unfiltered. You can listen to that podcast wherever you listen to podcasts if you're a podcast listener. It is a podcast that is not just going to be for wine lovers, like super wine geeks. It's a podcast that will, I think, resonate with a lot of people because we are interviewing and talking to, really not interviewing, people from all different sectors. So we're not focusing on just the wine industry. We are bringing in comedians and musicians, NFL stars, MLB players, NBA players. It has been such a great time to record these episodes. And like I said, my co-host is Vanessa Comlin, who's the head of Wine at Wine Access. And we open 2 bottles of wine every episode. Tomorrow, we launch with Carly Pierce, who is a very famous country music artist, Brad Williams, who's a wonderful comedian that you've seen, I'm sure, on Netflix and Amazon, and then Tiki Barber, who, of course, is a very famous running back from the New York Giants. football franchise in the great state of New York. So I hope you guys are excited as I am. I am really, really looking forward to the launch of this podcast tomorrow. You can find it, like I said, on any of those platforms, Spotify, Apple, or Google Play at all. And follow us on Instagram at Wine Access Unfiltered. You can also follow me. I'll let you know when they're coming out. And in the meantime, like I said, all of these wines can be found on Wine Access. Use the code below to get $50 off your first purchase of $150 or more. And also the other big thing about Wine Access is, hey, if you buy these wines and you're like, you're wrong, these are terrible, call Wine Access, let them know. They have a not only a provenance guarantee, but a sort of a satisfaction guarantee, and they will credit you back if you don't like the wine. I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't, it's no big deal. It's on them, which I just love. So thank you all so much for watching. Happy Wednesday. Weekly Wine Picks is back. Hooray! And I will see you all again very soon.